Hello, welcome everyone. This is Mo Allen here with another race on Zwift. Today I'll be racing the Zwift Community Racing Festival. This ride was on the 21st of November 2024. I'm riding in the, I was going to say B category, but it's the Zwift Racing category between around 520 and 690 or something like that. I forget exactly, but my racing score is somewhere between 500 and 600. So this ride, 44 riders to start. It's a 19-kilometer ride. My strategy, as always, will be to just try to stay with the front. This is going to be a hard effort given how short the course is relatively. So we start off with a burrito power-up here, and I have to admit, I actually don't know what the burrito power-up does. So once notice people using it here on this little bump, you'll see that I eventually decided to use it as well. It's interesting, I saw a rider just pop up there out of nowhere as if, I wonder if there are ghost power-ups now that I'm watching this replay. You see, I decided to use it. Oh, it says it right there, undraftable. That's new, right? I don't think I ever saw underneath the power-up timer where it shows how much time is left on the power-up. It said what it did. Unless it was always called undraftable. I don't believe it was, though. I don't see the burrito that often, so. Anyway, I'm sitting in here. So strategy is just stay with the peloton. There's a couple riders off the front here, but I'm not worrying about that. I'm just trying to stay in the draft. Keep an eye on the front of the peloton, not necessarily the front of the race. You'll see later on that a larger group of riders start to get away, and I go with them. But two riders off the front of a group this big, I decide to just sit in. And when you see it get strung out like this, you'll probably see me wind up. There I go, just a little bit, just to make sure. Plus you can see the streaks of someone putting in the fire from their tires, putting in some power. So I don't know, I don't want to get left behind, so I'm just trying to stay with the front here. I did a bit of recon on this ride just during the warm-up, right before this race. And so I knew enough to know that it was flat for a portion. So I knew it was going to be some jockeying for position, and you can see a group of riders up front, off the front. But again, with the small gap, and it doesn't look like they're pushing hard to get away, I decide again just to sit in on the group here with the group. And bide my time, try to draft, and just save the energy for the hills to come. So on the recon, I did see that out of after the beach or the dirt part, it will go into sort of an extended climb, and I knew that was going to be my main challenge. And you'll see my strategy there, but I knew I most likely wasn't going to stay with the front group, so I was just gonna kind of start the climb, see how the legs were feeling, and pick a power number based on that, and just try to kind of stay with that and with any riders that were like close to me. But if a group went off the front, that's where my strategy changes. In this ride at least, I wasn't trying to stay in the front on the climbs. One of my previous rides, it was the Devyzed group ride, actually, the Tour Watopia group ride, I think. For stage 5, the A distance that I rode as a race. that one I did actually, because the climbs were so short relatively, I did just try to stay with as much as I could with people in the front. But this one's a little different. The climb's more extended. So here's sort of the first time after 5 minutes, 320 watts average, that I'm able to get down into the gray numbers, or the gray power band on the graph there, and take a little bit of a break. It's not going to last too long. I think things are going to start to wind up again here. So it's just a lot of staying with trying to get in a good position, stay hydrated. You can see my warm-up was about 28 minutes for this ride, which is a long one, but I had time, so I figured I'd just get on the bike and spin easy. Most of that was just easy spinning, honestly, with some ramp-ups between 15 to 5 minute range. Not as structured, but when I got to the climbs on this route, because I did this route again for the warm-up, when I got to the climbs, I ramped up on the climbs just to try to not only get some power in the legs on the warm-up, but get through as much of the route as I can, sort of as I could, sort of as a recon. So I know coming up here, we're going to be going on the dirt up the little S climb up past the waterfall. So I'm just mentally gearing up for marking the group and trying to watch the wattage in the rider list to see how the other riders are reacting to the climbs, and just try to, again, at this point, I am trying to stay with the front, not let anyone, not let the peloton get away from me, at least. So here we are starting the climb. You can see the numbers up in the 5 to 6 watts per kilogram range. So I knew sort of where I needed to be. I wanted to stay seated here, try to stay controlled. It's a relatively short climb around these few curves. After this next curve, it'll be over. Relatively modest in gradient as well, but still enough for me to sap my legs. But got up it okay. And now sometimes after that climb, people will continue to wind up past these next 2 little bumps that come up, but this group was a little more subdued, so I was happy to see that. And just prepare for a little bit of respite on the descent after this next little bump coming up, and this right-hand turn back down towards the water. So here, after a little bit of a break, you can see some riders, 1 or 2 riders off the front there, and some other riders, I guess, either trying to make their own break and or trying to chase. So this is where I was saying that I'd noticed this pretty quickly and decided to go with this break because the size of that group was large enough that I figured I might as well try to stay with it and not get caught in the group behind. So that's what this is, just shutting down this or getting to this group right in front here, not worrying about the 2 riders off the front again at this point, but just getting to this group and sitting in and waiting for the longer climb. So here comes the climb. And so here again is where I'm going to not try to stay with the front, but just kind of see how the legs are feeling in the first few moments of the climb and try to sort of pick a watt range that I thought I could comfortably hold. I think in the beginning I choose around 500, which ends up being a little too much. I think it's 500. Let's see. Not there yet. Still around 450. There we are up at 500. When I see that group getting away, I think, okay, I see that 500 kind of keeps me in contact, and I'm like, let's see if I can kind of stay over around that 500 watt range, which again for me is just over 5 watts a kilogram, considering my rider weight is around 95 or 96, I believe, kilograms. So here you can see 25 riders back. Did a little effort at that 5 and scaled it back here, that 500. Scaled it back, and now I'm just trying to assess and see, is there going to be a group of riders around me that I think are similarly matched in terms of their power output on these climbs, and trying to make those riders my new group if I can get a group at all. Often on climbs I'm by myself, so here having these 5 riders around me, I decide I'm going to try to, at this point, stay with them and assess once I get to a little bit of a flat, see if they push on the, or flatter, not flat, but less gradient, see if they're pushing through the gradients, which a couple of them do, and just try to keep contact as much as I can while not burning myself out too much. Again, it's a short race, 14 minutes, 45 seconds already done. Half the race done, 9.5 kilometers to go. So here is where I'm sort of assessing, you can see I'm hurting there, sort of assessing whether or not I can even keep contact with this group on the flats. You can see they're up over 4 watts a kilogram, and I'm not feeling like pushing that after that effort. So sort of sitting in here and taking a little break in between, trying to maybe just keep them in contact in sight while waiting maybe for some reinforcements from behind if they're similarly matched in terms of power to me. Maybe we can catch that group back up, or maybe I can just catch them back up when I recover a bit. But 178 beats a minute, 339 watt average after 15 minutes. I'm feeling it here, so not really feeling like, and you know, they're not getting any closer. Only 1 second, but they're not getting any closer at this point. And this, I think, so they get close here, but I don't think I really get close to them for a long time. I'm out here in no man's land for a while here. This was an interesting point in the race with a string of riders behind me, no groups, right? One 3 seconds back, one 7 seconds back, one 10 seconds back, another 3 seconds further than that. I didn't feel like necessarily sitting up and waiting for anyone. You see a rider coming up, pushing some watts. I think when this rider comes up, I try to stay with them. But that group in front is tantalizingly close. But I'm feeling it here and find that I just am not, I don't have it in me to try to close even that 1 second gap. Seeing those 4.5 watt per kilogram numbers is kind of demoralizing, because I know for me at this point, like I'd have, like that's a hard effort for me to push that, and I'd have to push more than that for longer than that to catch them up. So I think right here is where I decide I'm gonna sit up and wait for this rider from behind. I think I don't time it well. They're gonna come past me quickly here, so I gotta put in a dig to stay with them. But you did see me turn off the graph there to try to gauge how far back they were, but I think I had my head down when they were coming through. But so F-Savis there in front of me. I think we do eventually catch that group, but it takes a while. They're so close, but it takes a bit for us to get them. But I believe we eventually do. So here we've caught up with the group, but again, I'm just hanging on. There's 2 riders going off the front a bit, so this just feels like this is tough for me. The legs are feeling it. I ran earlier in the week again. I mentioned in one of my earlier videos. I ran for the first time in weeks. It was a short run, just a 5K. Moderate effort for me, but probably like more effort than I should have put out, considering what it did to my legs and how I'm still feeling it. So the legs are suffering in these races, but because of that. So it was hard to keep contact with that group here. So I'm here with Nielsen here. I think at this point, with 6.7 kilometers to go, I'm resigned to stay with Nielsen and see whether or not any of their efforts will help to bring the group back. Also notice the rider behind, Klomp, putting in an effort 9 seconds back and wondering if they'll come back up with us. But I'm hurting here again. As I mentioned previously, I've been running out of gears. At the end, I was in my hardest gear and again was surprised by it. So I don't know if that's a equipment thing or a fatigue thing, but it's surprising to me, and I really haven't taken the time to just determine what it is that makes that so surprising. But I'm having to race these races in pretty hard gears. After the end of this ride, I actually did a spin down through the Wahoo app for the KICKR, and I did a calibration through Zwift, the Zwift app for the KICKR as well. So here we go. So on this little descent, I have it in my mind with 2 riders 3 seconds ahead, whether or not I could actually close down the gap to those 2 riders. 5.4K left. I'm not feeling incredibly strong, but I know that the downhills, if I'm going to do it at any time, the downhills is the time to do it. I'm concerned that if I do it, that it is going to sap my energy for the rest of the finish, the sprint. But I think at this point I decide, since I'm getting closer and closer and they're sitting up a little bit, that I'm going to use this downhill to catch them. So here with a little over 3 kilometers left, we've got our little 3-man group, 3-rider group established. And with the next rider 11 seconds behind, and then behind us, and the next rider in front of us 9 seconds. With 3K to go, I assumed this would be the group to the end. So here I'm just trying to stay with them, watch their watts, try not to use too much energy, and just get ready for the sprint. So I think it's around here that I noticed, surprisingly, to my surprise, that not only was there a rider 9 seconds behind, but there's a whole group 14 seconds behind. And I didn't understand what that was. In my mind, I'm like, oh, I just lost track of everyone behind us. And that group was coming up. So I'm like, oh, okay, now I have a whole group to contend with. And there I can see that they're pushing more watts than I am, so I was concerned that they would just blow by me and have more energy. But then I realized that maybe it's another group from another category or racing, like another pen. So it turned out to be the latter there, but at this point I didn't know that, and I thought, okay, it's not just 2 other riders I have to contend with, now it's a whole group. So in my mind, I'm weighing what to do in both cases, right? If it's riders in my category that I'm contending with for places, then I definitely need to mark them if I'm able, along with the 2 riders I'm with. But if it's riders in another category and I'm not competing against them for placement, then I can use them just as the group, because you still get the benefit of the draft and the group even if they're not in your category. So I honestly forget how I determined that they weren't in our group. Oh, I guess because once they catch us, which I think happens after the top of this little incline here, once they catch us, and you can see the watts they're pushing here, and I was really concerned because again, at this point, I wasn't sure that they weren't part of our group. But once they catch us and one of them passes, my place doesn't change. I'm still 21st out of 44, which is how I knew that they weren't in our category. So I figured, okay, I'll just not, if they're blowing by at 6 or 7 watts kilogram at this point, and the other 2 riders aren't, then I wasn't going to go with them. I also was concerned that I would just lose the other 2 riders in the group, which I did briefly, but then I remembered the jerseys of those riders, this pink one behind me and the gray one behind them. So here you can see me put in a dig just to stay with that group and benefit from the draft a little bit. And it was about here I realized that I can tell the 2 riders right behind me, the gray one that just went by and the pink one behind them, who's right to my left now, that those were the 2 that I was contending with. So, although interestingly, I see it's 23rd place now. So maybe actually one of these riders is I was contending with. I don't think I noticed that at the time, honestly. So I'm back to 23. Interesting. I think there is one rider in this that I'm contending with then. But here we go. We're getting ready for the sprint. I was actually surprised that no one was winding up before this. There's one rider going off there, but still not pushing crazy. So I was happy here. I was again surprised that I was in my hardest gear, so I had no more gears to work with, and I just had to wind up the cadence. I put in a pretty good dig here, over 1,000 watts for 5 seconds, I think I got, which for me is great. And I actually came in first from all those riders. So I think still 21st, yeah, 21st out of my group there, but it was a good ride. 330 watts for the 28 minutes, 3.5 average for me, watts per kilogram average. I am spent though. That was that was short and nasty for my fitness currently, but glad to have gotten it done. I took a day off yesterday unexpectedly because we had a power outage. Not a power outage, a internet outage in our area. So it was a forced rest. So good to get back after a day of rest and get a hard effort in. All right, I appreciate you watching as always. If you like the videos, give them a thumbs up if you appreciate it. At this point, I'm not sure how often I'll be able to do this. The production of the videos and the voiceovers take a bit of time, but it's pretty fun, and I'll try to do it as often as I can. I appreciate it, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.